Hello again. Here we are with question 4 of paper 2. I've installed a mic here, which makes me look even more ridiculous. But in an attempt to get better sound, we'll see how that works. So here is what a question typically looks like. And in yellow, I've got what will always appear in the question, no matter what. This will be the same wording. So for this question, you need to refer to the whole of source A together with the whole of source B. So you have to write about both sources and you get information from the whole of each source, okay? You will always be asked, compare how the writers convey their different viewpoints, or they might ask you to convey the perspectives, which is the same thing. You may get these different words used, the writer's thoughts or the writer's feelings, but as you know by now, that is the same as viewpoint and the same as perspective. Then you get this really unhelpful bit of advice. In your answer, you could. And could is in bold, and that's complete rubbish. It means you must. If you don't do the things that are in these 3 bullet points here, 1, 2, and 3, you can't get top marks. So bullet point number 1, what must you do? You must compare their different viewpoints. Yes, they will always be different viewpoints, and therefore, when the examiners say compare, they actually mean find the differences, okay? The differences, not any old differences, in the viewpoint or the perspective. Now, the crucial bit here is once you have found the difference, you have to name the method. What is the technique, the method that the writer is using here to show you the difference? And then finally, it says you could support your response with reference to both texts. No, it means you must, and reference means you must quote. Okay, well, before we get into how you should answer this question, we need to think about when. When should you answer it? So let's go a little deeper. The mean mark on question 4 in 2017, the only time this question's been sat so far, was 7.3 marks out of 16. So less than 50%. But this was a higher mark than people got in question 3 and a higher mark than people got in question 2. Okay, so even though this is the question with the most marks on it, it was the one that students found easiest after questions 2 and questions 3. Well, why? Okay, well, to answer that, let's go back to question 3. Question 3 asked you to write exclusively about source A, so you got to know source A in loads of detail before you answered it in question 3. Sorry, before you answered it in question 4. So you've already kind of thought about half of question 4 before you got there. Now, I'm proposing that you should do question 3 first and then question 4. Why not question 2? Because question 2 is also about source A and source B. Well, because question 2 was the one that students did worse at, so they got more mistakes in question 2, and it's only worth 8 marks. Question 4 is worth double that, it's worth 16 marks, and so my top bit of advice is do question 4 as early as you can, so question 3 first, then question 4, because then you've banked most of the marks of the paper. And if you've taken my real advice and done question 5 first, you slammed this paper really quickly before you run out of energy and stamina and your hand starts to hurt and your brain's killing you. You've got the marks in early. So question 3, then question 4. Okay, well, what did the examiner tell us that students got wrong in this question? Why did more than 50% of them get it wrong? Well, they ignored the methods. Remember, that was one of those bullet points. You had to write about the writer's methods, which means you had to name them. You should remember what the techniques are from Mad Father's Crotch, especially if you've watched my earlier videos. This is typically what students did. They wrote what the different viewpoints are. So-and-so believes this, the other writer believes that, but they forgot the how. And of course, the how, again, is the methods. That's how the viewpoints are created. And then finally, students knew only a few methods. And typically that happens when you've only been taught DAForest and In Da Forest, you only have a few methods, whereas in Mad Father's Crotch, you have 15, and you're guaranteed to be able to spot methods. Just put your finger on the page somewhere, there'll be a method jumping out at you because you know so many of them. And in case you haven't been paying attention, these are those 15 methods. What are they? I'll try and do them from memory. Metaphor, alliteration, direct address, facts, anecdote, triplets, humor, hyperbole, emotive language, rhetorical questions, statistics, creating an enemy, repetition, opinion, contrasting pairs, humor. Okay, and I get my students to learn that by heart, and then it becomes easy for them to start using them in question 5 and spotting them in questions 2, 3, and 4. And the examiner is actually quite helpful in the report because she or he writes us what a suggested method would be to get top marks. Here it is. Make a point about the viewpoint or the attitude or the perspective. Remember, those 3 things are actually the same thing. From source A. Start with source A because you know it best. You've done it in question 3. And also because it is the modern text. Quote, pick a reference to prove what the viewpoint, attitude, or perspective is. Name the method. Which part of Mad Father's Crotch was it? Remember, you're not going to call it Mad Father's Crotch. You're going to call those rhetorical techniques. That's what they are. Then you're going to explain how this gives us the writer's viewpoint. Oh, missing apostrophe. Massive apologies. Attitude or perspective. Then you're going to think about the next source, which is source B. And you're going to make a point about the viewpoint, attitude, or perspective, which is similar or different. And I've highlighted the word different because it's almost inevitable that you'll be asked to spot differences rather than similarities. Then once again, you quote to back that up. And again, you must name the method or you won't get the mark. And then you comment again on how this gives us the writer's viewpoint, attitude, or perspective. Or I must have copied and pasted that. Forgotten the apostrophe again. Just modeling for you why you need time to check your answers, by the way. And then you repeat that process to make another comparison. So you have got 2 quotations from both source A and source B, and those quotations are compared. There you go. So you've got effectively 4 things interlinking there. I wish I could count, but you can see what I mean. 2 quotations from each, compared each time. The best answers to get the real top marks then link this to how the how the writer has shifted the tone or has shifted the perspective in order to give us a different point of view. And by the way, if you're looking for shifts in tone and shifts in perspective, where do you think those occur in the text? I'll give you a moment to think, and then I shall type it for you. That is correct. I hope you got that. You find those in the endings. So get your quotations, or at least 2 of your quotations, from the end of the text, because that will always give you a shift in focus or tone. Right, that's it. Simple as that, isn't it? Really pleased that the examiner's report was so helpful there. If you'd like more help with your revision, don't forget to subscribe.